Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. For this tutorial, I decided to do something a little bit more simple. It is a ruched fondant fan cake with some texture, a very simple way to add some texture to your fondant on the side of the cake. With one tool is all you need to do this. So let's get started. First thing I'm gonna do is use some rice paper to make, wafer paper to make some decorations. Now I just kind of made this up on the fly. And it worked pretty well. I just added some water and some edible glucose, food grade glucose. And I'm gonna mix it up to make what I would normally do for the flexible lace or the flexible tulle. But I added some glucose to hopefully give it some flexibility. And then once I got that all pulsed up into a liquid, I added some luster dust to try to match the color of the fondant. And I have these feather silicone molds, and I was gonna try this, and it worked out pretty good, like I said, but I would add more glucose is what I would do. And make sure you work your product into all the nooks and crannies, because there can be some air bubbles, and it can give you a little bit of a hard time. And then I just decided to go ahead, and I had extra, put it in a silicone lace mat and see what happens with that. And then I baked it on the slowest setting in the oven for about 30 minutes. And then I went in and did a second coat. Because as it dried, it kind of, anywhere that there were some air bubbles, it kind of made it so that there were holes in it. And I think that it actually kind of made it dry out a little too much. But I think that's because we needed more glucose. So I'll add a recipe in the description, but remember that it is an experiment and I need to fine tune that. So it's a good place to start. It worked pretty good. And then I'm gonna make the ruched flags or the sails, whatever you wanna call it. And I'm just using some fondant that I added some Tylose to. Tylose is gonna make it dry faster and harder because I didn't want them to get droopy. I wanted them to hold their shape. And I just carved them or shaped them in these abstract circles, oval type circles, and I'm just gathering it together. You could use skewers underneath there to help you gather this if that helps. I've done that in other videos. I'll try to remember to add a link to those also, but I've done it a few times, so I can just use my fingers to shape these. And I did a variety of sizes and shapes. I made more than I needed, like I always do. In fact, I don't even know that I'll show you all of them because I didn't use all of them. And then I'm just going to pinch together the bottom. I'm going to cut that off eventually once I get ready to apply them to the cake. And once I got these formed, I just set them to the side to firm up. Now, I made these and used these in the same day. So, yeah, it doesn't take too long for them to firm up to the point where you can use them. Probably a couple of hours. Now we're going to put the fondant on our cake. I'm going to do the panel method like I typically do, which requires that you carve out, why do I keep saying carve? Cut out a disc for the top of your cake and then roll out a piece of fondant the same height and the same width that you need to get it around the cake. Given a little bit of extra on both ends so that you have enough and you can cut off the excess. You'd rather have too much than try to stretch it to fit. That's just going to warp your fondant and give you some thin spots and really, honestly, all in all, just make your job harder. So just give yourself an inch or two longer and taller than you think you need. Now, normally I'd have music in the background, guys. I need to give you a little update here. But my YouTube on my computer is broken. YouTube is working on it. We don't know what the problem is. So I'm using my husband's laptop at this point to upload my videos. And on his, I don't have the option like I do on mine to add music in the background. So you're just going to have to listen to me in silence for now until this gets worked out. But like I said, they're working diligently to fix the problem. Don't know what the problem is. So anyway, we put a little bit of shortening on the cake. This cake is pre-covered with some dark chocolate ganache, which is, what did I use? I used 3 parts chocolate, 1 part cream on this ganache. And the shortening is just is going to make the fondant stick to the cake. Now, people have asked me in the past, can you taste the shortening? No, you can't. There's already shortening worked into the fondant, and it just kind of, they end up becoming one. There's not enough shortening for you to be able to taste that. It's just acting as an adhesive. You can use water or simple syrup if you prefer to. Now, I picked this piece up, obviously, as you can tell, before it had firmed up enough to where it wasn't going to give me problems. But because I had one day to do this, so I had to make sure I got everything done, and I just kind of rushed through it a little bit this time. So I didn't. I should have left it to sit for about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour tops before you lift it onto your cake, since you don't have to worry about it wrapping around the top and the top edge. You don't have to worry about it ripping and tearing or elephant skinning when you lift it onto your cake in a panel method. It's going to be just fine. As long as you don't let it sit for a couple of hours. I mean, then yeah, you're going to have a problem, but 30 minutes is not going to cause a problem. In fact, it'll make your job easier. And then I would normally put it in the fridge before I cut that piece off so that it can firm up a little bit and it's a little easier to cut. That's what I would suggest you do. And then flip it back over and you have your nice sharp edge. It's seriously the best way to get those sharp edges, guys. And then this is just how I did that ruching on the cake. The ruche, faux ruche look. I just used a skewer. That's it. And just create lines is all I'm doing. Pressing in a little bit. You have to do this when your fondant is still soft. That's another reason. As I'm saying it, I'm remembering that I didn't want to let it dry out too much before I put it on because I knew I wanted to do this. And if you let it dry too much, you know, you might get a little bit of cracking or a little bit of, you know, when your fondant gets kind of crinkly looking. But just do this all the way around your cake. This is what I would call more of a flat ruche. You don't have the softness of a pleated ruche, but it still gives you that look. I wanted to do this monochrome, basically, design, but I didn't want it to be boring. So I wanted to add something to the fondant, and I thought that might be a good way to do this technique. And then I had some pieces of fondant that I had left out overnight, that I had rolled thin and left out overnight so that I can use them as texture on these flags. I'm just brushing a little water on the very top edge, and then I'm just using these crumbled up pieces of dried fondant. Use them as a decoration. Another way to keep the monochrome look, but keep it interesting. You have some texture. And I did half of them with this and half without. And like I said, I made a whole bunch. So I tend to waste a lot of time doing more decorations than I need to, but I'd rather have too many than not enough. I don't know if you guys have ever had that happen to you. Let me know in the comments if you ever had that happen where you think you have enough and you get so close to being done and you either run out of your buttercream that's colored a very specific color that was hard to make, and you know you used all the different colors to get a tone, but you didn't write down how much of each, or you think you have enough edible lace and you go to apply it to the cake and you're short a little bit. I had that happen this week at work, actually. And I'm going to make a video on this one too. We'll make this a story time. I had to make some sugar flowers, small sugar flowers, to go on a cake, wedding cake. And I needed to keep some extra for the sugar cookies that we're going to decorate with them. Here's that lace, dried, completely dried, and I just added the same luster dust that I used in it to begin with to add a little bit more shimmer to it. Anyway, real quick, finish that story. I made 300 of these little white sugar flowers, and I ended up using them all in the cake. So I had to make 150 more. So it happens all the time. Like I said, let me know if that ever happens to you so I know I'm not alone in this. Now we're going to attach these ruched flags onto the cake. And I'm just using some more ganache because I had it at hand. You could use buttercream. I would not use a piping gel on this because the weight of the flags is going to be too heavy and they're going to slide down your cake potentially. I was a little worried about that happening with the ganache because of the cream. It doesn't want to firm up real fast, like just a melted chocolate would, but it did work just fine. I'm trying to make sure that the pinched bottoms, I did cut off the excess once I figured out how I wanted them attached. I just cut off the excess, and you can kind of camouflage that a little bit just with your placement. The ones on the top, I did add some piping gel on the very bottom to get them to stick to the top because you don't have to worry about them falling forward. That's just fine. And I thought, we're still a little boring, so let's add a little bit of shimmer. I've been doing a lot of shimmer lately. I don't know why. I'm in the mood. Shimmer. And the edible gems. I think I just like that stuff. So I'm just dusting some of this onto the cake, and I think it actually brought more attention to the ruching. I think it made it stand out a little bit more. So I'm glad I did that. But I left the flags themselves matte so that you have a contrast between the two. And now I'm just adding my little decorations that I made. Kind of wish I had a mold where the leaves or the feathers were longer, you know, a little bigger, but I ordered them online and this was the biggest one I could find. I'm just adding these here and there, kind of in between, tucked in between all of the fondant ruched flags. This part I did not have a foresight on what I wanted to do, so I just kind of stuck them in where I thought they might work. And hopefully they did. Now at this point, I was looking at it and I said, okay, I need to add something else. But I didn't want to do anything over the top floral because I always do floral. That's kind of my go-to. So I wanted to add something flowery-ish, but not overwhelming. So I just added the white. I don't even know what you would call these. But they're just singular stems and they're not big. They're just kind of a little bit of an accent and they add one more color. So it's still basically monochromatic with just a touch of something else. Let me know if you like it better with or without the white. I'm kind of curious what you guys like. And you know it would not be a Sophisticakes by Mary cake if I did not add gold somewhere. So I added it on the tips of the flags that did not have the crushed up fondant. And a little bit of highlight on those crushed up pieces as well, just to highlight them. And I had extra, so I just used a little piping gel on the board and just kind of randomly placed those around. And they stuck with just the piping gel. So there it is, all done. I hope you liked it. Kept it, like I said, a little bit more on the simple side. Well, it was supposed to be, but I, of course, had to embellish it and add some extra things. So I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from it. And I will catch you on the next one. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social